There is a version of Prague that most people never see. It exists between roughly 5 and 7 in the morning, before the tour buses find their parking spaces, before the guided groups assemble by the astronomical clock, before the souvenir stalls on Charles Bridge roll up their shutters. In those hours, the old town belongs to the people who actually live inside it. The bakery workers, the tram drivers, the nurses finishing a night shift, and it looks, for a short window, like a city rather than a destination. The Vltava runs through the center of Prague with the deliberateness of a river that has had a long time to decide where it wants to go. It enters the city from the south, bends west past the castle hill, and then curves east again through the old town and on toward the Elbe. Along its banks, the weirs and the islands and the old mill wheels create a geography of small obstacles and diversions that slow everything down. In the early morning, before the pedestrian traffic fills the bridges, the water is quiet and the reflections of the city in it are almost still. Prague is small by the standards of European capitals. About 1.25 million people live here. The historic center occupies a few square kilometers between the river and the eastern edge of the old city walls. And within that compact space sit enough Baroque churches, Gothic towers, and Renaissance facades to occupy weeks of serious looking. That density is real. It is also the problem. The same quality that makes the center so visually compelling is what makes 8 million visitors a year feel, to the people who live here, like an event that never ends. What is it actually like to live in Prague? The Old Town Square has one of the most photographed clock faces in Europe. The astronomical clock, the horloge, was completed in 1410, making it the third oldest astronomical clock in the world, and by a wide margin, the one that receives the most visitors waiting for it to do something. Every hour on the hour, 12 apostles appear briefly in small windows above the clock face. A skeletal figure rings a bell, and a small golden rooster crows. The process takes approximately 45 seconds. For this, crowds of several hundred people gather, phones raised, 10 minutes before each performance. The clock itself is extraordinary, in fact. The lower disc tracks the positions of the sun and moon through the zodiac. The upper disc shows the time in multiple systems simultaneously, including Old Czech time, which begins at sunset, a holdover from an era when the length of an hour varied with the season. The mechanism predates accurate pendulum clocks by more than 2 centuries. Standing close to it, what you can see is a medieval mind trying to fit the entire model of the cosmos into a single face. That is worth looking at. The hourly performance is incidental to it. The astronomical clock is also a useful marker for a particular kind of tourism, the kind that gathers at an appointed time to watch an appointed thing, then moves on. The people who wait for the apostles are in the old town square for a purpose, and their purpose is not primarily to spend time in Prague. It is to complete Prague, to photograph it, to add it to an itinerary that may already include Vienna and Salzburg and Budapest in the same week. There is nothing wrong with this. It is how much of the world travels now. But it produces a particular effect on the city that hosts it. The Old Town Square, Wenceslas Square, Charles Bridge. These spaces have become, in a functional sense, stages. They are maintained, managed, and priced for an audience that passes through. The restaurant on the square that charges 4 times what a restaurant 3 streets away would charge is not making a mistake. It has correctly identified who its customers are and what they will pay without knowing any better. Prague receives close to 8 million tourists annually in a city of 1.25 million residents. That ratio, roughly 6 visitors for every resident, concentrated in a few square kilometers, creates pressures that most cities of this size do not face. Short-term rentals have hollowed out entire buildings in the center. Shops that served the neighborhood for decades have been replaced by gift shops selling amber and crystal. The streets that tourists follow have been optimized for them. The streets that tourists do not follow have been left alone. That second set of streets is where the city lives. Take the number 9 tram east from the Old Town or north from Wenceslas Square, and within 10 minutes the city changes character entirely. Žižkov sits on a hill to the east of the historic center, and for most of its history it was one of Prague's most politically restless districts. A working-class neighborhood with a reputation for dissent going back to the Hussite Wars of the 15th century, it renewed that reputation with every subsequent political upheaval. During communism, Žižkov's independent streak made it awkward to manage. After 1989, it was slow to gentrify, which meant it kept the texture that other Prague neighborhoods lost earlier. The density of small pubs, the unpretentious street life, the buildings that look their age. The Žižkov television tower, completed in 1992, stands at the top of the hill and is visible from most of the city. 3 concrete cylinders supporting an antenna structure above the rooftops. It was designed by Václav Aulicki in the 1970s, under a brief that was partly about television reception and partly about Soviet prestige. In 2000, the artist David Cerny attached 10 oversized crawling babies to the tower's surface. They have been there since. Whether the tower is ugly or magnificent is a question Praguers have been arguing about for 30 years without resolution. Vinohrady, south of Žižkov, is quieter and more prosperous. It was built in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as a residential neighborhood for the emerging Czech middle class. The professionals, lawyers, and civil servants who had done well enough to live outside the old city but wanted to remain near it. The architecture is largely Art Nouveau, with wide streets and a grid plan unusual for Prague at the time. Náměstí Míru, its main square, has a neo-Gothic church at its center and a farmer's market on Saturdays. The cafes are full of people with laptops open and nowhere urgent to be. There are a lot of international residents. There are also still a lot of people who were born nearby and have not left. Smíchov sits on the west bank of the Vltava, south of the Castle Hill. It is neither one thing nor the other, which is what makes it interesting. There is a large shopping center. There are also street-level workshops, studios, and the kind of small bars that only survive in places where rents have not yet caught up with a neighborhood's improving reputation. The annual metro station connects it to the rest of the city in under 10 minutes. From the river bank at Smíchov, you can see the castle on its hill across the water, and the distance between that view and the view from inside the tourist center is, in every sense, considerable. These are the districts where Prague actually works, where bread is bought in the morning, where children go to school, where the pubs stay open after 10 on a Tuesday, because the customers are not following a hotel concierge's list of recommended evening activities. In November 1989, Czechoslovakia's communist government resigned without a shot being fired. The crowds on Wenceslas Square had numbered in the hundreds of thousands. The playwright Václav Havel became president. The process was rapid and comparatively peaceful, and it acquired a name that suited both qualities: the Velvet Revolution. Within weeks, the border to the west was open. Within months, the first foreign cars and goods and investors had arrived. 35 years later, the revolution's achievements are not in doubt, and its complications are fully visible. The transition to a market economy was faster and more disorienting than most people who had lived under the previous system were prepared for. Privatization moved quickly and unevenly. State enterprises were sold, often at prices that benefited insiders. A generation that had been educated inside one system found itself navigating rules it had not been taught. Some adapted, some did not. The Czech Republic joined the European Union in 2004, and the city that had been cut off from the West for 50 years suddenly found itself connected to it entirely. Workers moved freely. Capital moved freely. The historic city center, already attractive to visitors, became dramatically more so as budget airlines opened routes, and the euro remained more expensive than the Czech crown. The housing market accelerated. Prague's rents, modest by Western European standards through most of the 1990s and 2000s, began rising sharply after 2015. By the early 2020s, the average price per square meter in the inner districts had reached levels comparable to many German and Austrian cities, while wages, though rising, had not kept pace. Young Czechs were moving out of the city, or moving to smaller apartments further from the center, or not moving at all, staying in family homes longer than earlier generations had. Waiting for a housing market that kept becoming less accessible. The Velvet Revolution promised something specific: the right to live differently than before, to travel, to read what you wanted, to start a business, to participate in a Europe that had been forbidden for 50 years. That promise was kept. The city is genuinely open. What was not promised, and what arrived anyway, was the cost. There is a statistic that Czechs take some pride in and some ambivalence about. For most of the past century, the Czech Republic has led the world in beer consumption per capita. The average is somewhere around 180 litres per person per year. This is not a tourist figure, it is a demographic reality, and it reflects something structural about how social life here is organized. The neighborhood hospoda, the local pub, is hard to compare directly to anything in other European cultures. It is not a gastropub. It is not primarily a place to eat, though food is often available. It is a place to sit for a long time at a table that you consider yours, with people you have known for years, talking about things that may or may not matter. Czech social life in the hospoda runs on a particular kind of understatement. Czechs rank among the least religious populations in Europe and among the most skeptical of authority, of official optimism, of anyone who speaks with too much confidence about what comes next. These traits were refined across decades of governance by people who were themselves not trusted and who, in turn, did not trust the population they were managing. The response, worked out over generations, was a form of lateral solidarity, loyalty to the table, to the neighborhood, to the people immediately around you, combined with a dry wit that could function safely under any government. Franz Kafka was born in Prague in 1883. He wrote about bureaucracy and the impossibility of getting a straight answer from any official structure. He is often described as surrealist or absurdist, a writer whose imagination outran ordinary experience. Spend time in Prague, and the work reads differently, not as an escape from reality, but as a fair description of it. That description is still accurate. The hospoda has not disappeared. The skepticism has not been replaced by something more enthusiastic. Despite 35 years of access to everything, the irony remains. It is the thing that people who live here and people who leave and come back most consistently say they recognize. Not the Gothic towers or the castle view, the tone. By 8 or 9 in the evening, a portion of the tourist infrastructure begins to close. The guided tours have dispersed. The day trippers from Vienna and Dresden and Munich have returned to their coaches. The restaurants on the square grow quiet or fill with a different crowd. People who are staying for more than one night, or people who live here and have decided tonight to eat in the part of the city that tourists know. The old town at night is not the same as the old town in the afternoon. The temperature drops. The light from the street lamps catches the stonework at an angle that daylight does not. The spires of the tin church emerge above the roofline the way they do in every travel guide photograph, and are, in person, still a surprise. The castle on the hill, lit in pale light against the sky, does what it has done for visitors from every era. It refuses to look entirely real. Prague is a city that has absorbed considerable external pressure without losing an identifiable internal character. It was one of the most important cultural centers in Central Europe for much of the last millennium. It was under Habsburg rule for 300 years. It had 20 years of democracy between the wars, then 50 years of one kind of authoritarianism, replaced in an afternoon by another kind of freedom. The city absorbed all of this and remained itself, somewhat crowded in the middle, functional and dry in the parts that matter, and in possession of a character that its residents find genuinely hard